Happy Thursday morning. Welcome into Morning JOX here on JOX 94.5. Another day with Conrad Van Order and Damian Mitchell. We are continuing to get you ready for the Final Four coming up this weekend. We are now just 2 days away from Auburn taking the court against the Florida Gators and Duke taking on the Houston Blue Devils there in San Antonio. A lot of excitement stirring up around this game, and rightfully so. I know we've already had some of our wonderful Auburn listeners that have chimed in, sent us, texted us pictures, tweeted us pictures of them. They've already arrived there in San Antonio, already getting things underway there with the festivities. Our very own Landrum Roberts, he touched down in San Antonio yesterday afternoon, so he is there, boots on the ground. We will get to hear from him later today as well as tomorrow, as he has us covered from there in San Antonio, keeps us up to date on everything going on with Auburn, with Janai Broom and his health. We know Auburn, they were sent off to San Antonio yesterday. They had their Tiger Walk down there in Auburn. Looked like they had a really great showing of fans there to send them off to the Final Four. But yeah, already hearing from a lot of you that y'all are heading over there as well. So hope everyone has safe travels. Take the JOX 94.5 app with you. You can listen to us there Thursday and Friday while you're hanging out at the War Eagle watering hole or whatever that place was that Don was telling us about yesterday. So hopefully there's a large congregation of Auburn fans heading there to San Antonio, and they're going to be well represented on Saturday in the Final Four. So we do want to talk more about that game, but we do have first and foremost kind of the big news in SEC basketball yesterday, and we talked about it yesterday morning, and that was Buzz Williams taking the Maryland job, and so now Texas A&M finds themselves looking for a new college basketball coach. So we talked yesterday about some names, some people that we had been hearing to keep an eye on in terms of where Texas A&M was going to go with that coaching search. And the first name that I brought up yesterday on the show was Chris Beard, the Ole Miss basketball coach, and that was essentially where everyone went with their first thought was, right, this is the guy that you make say no. This is the guy you go after first, and everyone else is kind of a plan B if you're not able to get Chris Beard over to College Station. Well, we now know Chris Beard is not going to go to Texas A&M.
Nope.
He stiff-armed the Aggies, and he has decided to remain there in Oxford, Mississippi. He will be given, unsurprisingly, a nice new payday there in Oxford, Mississippi. We don't know exactly what the numbers for that are, but the report is that he is going to get a significant raise on his yearly salary. He is also going to be given more money for his coaching staff so he can go out there and make some upgrades on his staff. And he is also going to be given more support for NIL. So this is very similar to the situation. And it's a little bit different because some of these Lane Kiffin, is he going to go? Is he going to take this job? Is he going to get offered this job? A lot of that stuff really hasn't kind of come to fruition. It's just been rumors and things like that. But he's gotten a couple of raises there in Oxford. He's been, told that they're going to, reinforce their commitment to NIL. That was always a big thing for him. And we've seen what that's been able to do. I know you still haven't, I guess, gotten to where you wanted to, which is a college football playoff, but he's had a lot of success at Ole Miss, and a lot of that was getting a commitment to NIL, and now we know in college basketball that is incredibly important, seeing what some of these schools have done. I mean, we've heard that Arkansas had maybe the most expensive roster in the entire country this year, and that's here in the SEC. We know Auburn and Alabama, what they've done, not only on recruiting, but through the portal the last couple of years. They've made a commitment to NIL. You have to imagine that Texas, bringing in a new coach and starting a new era there, they're ready to load up on NIL. Everybody at this point, we know what Kentucky's got, right? I mean, if you follow these graphics on social media, just about every player that goes in the portal has a Kentucky logo on there. That this is the world that you live in now. And if you want to be competitive, you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is, and you're going to have to get your athletic department to double down and be willing to give you the resources you need. And it looks like Ole Miss was willing to do that for Chris Beard. So Chris Beard is going to stay there in Oxford, Mississippi. So now the search continues for the Aggies.
Yeah, and this is kind of one of those things that in coaching, even if you have the thought or the threat that your coach may leave, the one thing that can always reel them back in is, hey, we'll give you some more money. Just don't even entertain the thought. And if you're Chris Beard, you use your leverage. It's, I know what I'm capable of. You've seen what I can do as a coach. And when programs like Texas A&M, who can literally open the checkbook and say whatever number that you want, you kind of, you relay that back to your to the school that you're currently at, and kind of let them know, like, hey, Texas A&M has offered me this, and I'm kind of thinking about I'd at least go tour the facilities and see what I may or may not like. And then Ole Miss is like, you know what? We don't have time to entertain it. What number do you need to see? We got you. What do you need in the NIL budget? We got you. Do you need some more money for your coaching staff? We got you. Okay, say no more. And I think that's where, and you see it a lot. And I mean, you saw it at Auburn a few years ago with Gus Malzahn. It's just like the threat of him going to Arkansas ended up parlaying him into a contract extension. So the thing is, in these negotiations and when coaching vacancies happen, really and truly, it's a leverage game, because, like you said, the first name that everybody thought of when that job came open was Chris Beard, and and if I'm Texas A&M, this is probably the first person I called, and like we talked about yesterday, make them say no. And when Ole Miss ponied up the money, it's like, hey, even if you're entertaining leaving, just know what we can do for you. So how about you stay just a little while longer? And if you're Ole Miss, you got to be feeling pretty good. It's okay. Well, yeah, we forked out a lot of money, but if he's going to lead us to, a Sweet 16 Elite 8 berth, by God, so be it. Like, if we're going to be at least in the conversation with him as at the helm, and we can get some of the talent that we've gotten there so far, let's see how long we can ride this wave.
Yeah, it's an interesting world we live in now, where, and I know, for Texas A&M, it's been it's been rough for them the last couple of years when you think about having to get rid of Jimbo Fisher, everything that happened with that situation. Then you had a pretty darn good baseball coach. He gets poached by your rival in Texas as they enter the SEC. And now you have a basketball coach who, look, I think Maryland's a very good program, but what he had built at Texas A&M and the strength that the SEC has right now, and just kind of an interesting move again, that you're now losing a basketball coach who, all jokes aside, I think Buzz Williams is an excellent basketball coach, and you now lose him to Maryland. And it's just been, the coaching carousel for Texas A&M has been very active to their misfortune for the last couple of years. So it's just kind of interesting to see how that works out. But so reportedly Chris Beard, he's signing a new 6-year deal to stay there at Ole Miss. Don't know exactly what the dollar amount is, but reportedly Texas A&M was offering him a little over $7 million a year.
Oh boy.
Which Buzz was making, I think, 4.7. So, they were going to raise about $2.5 million a year. Yeah. Chris Beard was making $5 million at Ole Miss, so that number is going to go up. So maybe that's the number they got to for him, was $7.5 million, something like that per year. But those are the numbers that were reported last night. But it is interesting that you also have, media there in Texas reporting that apparently, according to some sources in Texas, Chris Beard was actually the one that initiated this situation with Texas A&M, in the sense that he kind of raised his hand and said, yeah, I would be interested in throwing my hat in the ring for that job. And whether that was legitimate or that was simply just a negotiation tactic to get what he ultimately wanted, which was the new deal there at Ole Miss, I don't know, but it's always interesting when you hear just kind of how some of these stories go, and how, it looks like, similar to how the Buzz Williams thing, maybe that was leaked out a little bit ahead of time. There were rumblings that was something that was on the horizon. And so you would imagine that then on the flip side, if we're aware of that, so is Texas A&M. So they're going to go ahead and start doing their legwork. And so, you kind of get in a situation where, from what we understand, it feels like Buzz Williams maybe, was the one that reached out to Maryland and said, hey, I would be interested in that job. They get him that job. So Texas A&M turns around and Chris Beard reaches out to them and says, oh, well, I think I'd be interested in coming over there and replacing Buzz Williams. And, Buzz got what he asked for, and Chris Beard, I guess, technically got what he asked for, which was a conversation. And then Texas A&M is the one that got stood up on prom night, and so they're now sitting at home waiting on that bouquet, and it's not coming for them. So they now have to figure out what direction they want to go in next. Again, I mean, we talked about Chris Jans yesterday, and him being a popular choice, and now that is, where you pivot if you want to stick with somebody that's here in the SEC. You have other guys that are talented in the state of Texas. We talked about Grant McCaslin yesterday, the head coach of Texas Tech, and what he has done there since, I guess, in the aftermath of Chris Beard leaving there. But, we all saw what Texas Tech just did this year in the tournament. So they've got some options out there, but, certainly hurts when you have an option 1A and you feel like they're interested, you're interested, you have what it takes to get the job done. You're Texas A&M, money's not going to be an obstacle, right? And then at the last second, you get stiff-armed and you find out he's going to stay at Ole Miss. But just, who would have thought a couple years ago that you would be able to say, the Ole Miss basketball coach turned down Texas A&M, and Alabama basketball coach turned down Kentucky. Like, an Auburn basketball coach has probably turned down a lot of those similar jobs.
Right.
It's just crazy that that's the world we live in now where, even just these three programs that, you just wouldn't have been able to say that a decade ago, right? No one in their right mind would have ever thought that someone would stick around at one of those schools as opposed to heading to a blue blood or somewhat of a powerhouse in college athletics. But that's the world we live in now. And NIL has played a big part of that and giving these guys an opportunity to where they can stay. But I think it's really cool that you're seeing the SEC understand that if they wanted to get better at other sports and be known for more than just football, it was going to take a financial commitment. And you've seen a lot of these programs here in recent memory that have decided whether it was going with maybe a controversial hire and someone like a Chris Beard or a Bruce Pearl, or going out and getting somebody from a Buffalo like Nate Oates and bringing these guys into the SEC and understanding that, yeah, all right, if you want to play ball, it's going to cost some money, but we're seeing how those dividends are already paying off, and getting 14 teams in the NCAA tournament, having 7 teams in the Sweet 16, and kind of standing head and shoulders above the other conferences in college basketball, at least for this year. It's very cool to see. And I feel a little bit bad for Texas A&M in this scenario.
You do?
No, not really. I was just saying that.
It sounded like the right thing to say.
It sounded like the right thing to say, but no, no. But best of luck to them as they continue their coaching search, and we will keep you updated on anything going on over there in Aggie land. But we do have, again, the Final Four coming up in just 2 days out there in San Antonio. Auburn and Florida, the rematch. Want to dive into that matchup as well as talk about some more portal news. We have Alabama a couple days ago getting their first player out of the portal. Now, last night, Auburn, they go and get a guy out of the transfer portal who I think is going to be a heavy contributor for the Tigers next year. So we'll tell you who that is. And we'll talk about some of the most impactful transfers in the transfer portal, as well as take a closer look at Auburn versus Florida in the Final Four. It's a Thursday morning, and you're listening to Morning JOX right here on JOX 94.5. 6:18. Welcome back into Morning JOX. JOX 94.5 here with you on your Thursday morning, continuing to get you set for the Final Four out there in San Antonio, Texas, as the Auburn Tigers are getting ready to take on the Florida Gators with a trip to the national championship game on Monday on the line. It would be Auburn's first trip to the national championship game. I know that's a little bit of a sore spot for some of you Auburn fans, but it's okay. That can be rectified this weekend. We can move on from that Virginia game in 2019, and we can start to remember the Florida game in 2025. That's what we'll call it. If Auburn finds themselves victorious and ends up with a spot in the national championship. And, you know, we've talked a lot about this game all throughout the week so far, Damian. And, you know, now that we're 2 days out, I'm just kind of curious from your perspective, you know, what is there a, you know, maybe one facet of this game that stands out to you in terms of what Auburn's going to need to do in order to win against Florida? Because I just go back to that first matchup and where you had Miles Kelly, who had 22 points for Auburn and kind of led the day for them. But you had Chad Baker-Mazara had, I think, 4 points. Denver Jones had 2 points. Tahad Pettiford had 14. So you got most of your work done from the guard play from Miles Kelly. And I just feel like going into this game, you're going to need more from a guy like Denver Jones, not only offensively, but the job that he's going to have on Walter Clayton Jr. and just going back and, you know, watching, you know, looking at, you know, some of the Alabama and Auburn games from this year, right? And what he was able to do to Mark Sears and how he, you know, 2 of the worst games of Mark Sears' season came against Auburn because of what Denver Jones was able to do, locking him up. And he's one of the better defensive guards in all of college basketball. And so I look at that as, can you get more out of the guard play as a group where it's not just one guy kind of carrying the load from a scoring perspective, but also Denver Jones and what he brings to the table defensively, I think going to be massive.
Yeah, and I think for going back to that last matchup with Florida there in the regular season for Auburn, it was kind of the welcome to the party moment for Walter Clayton Jr. And we started to see how clutch he really was. And I think for Auburn, and to your point with Denver Jones, you got to throw a lot of different looks at Walter Clayton Jr. because he is the engine that keeps Florida going. Not to say that they don't have a lot of other pieces around them, but you know if you neutralize them, that makes everybody else have to step their game up. And you'd rather lose to, you know, just another guard that just has a great night because he's getting those looks because you're putting all of your focus on Walter Clayton Jr. And I think for another thing for Auburn is something that you saw against Michigan State. Get Janai Broome going early. Get him rolling. Because, again, when you look at the game against Michigan State, he had 17 in the first half. Had a double-double in the first half. And I think as quickly as you can get him started, get him some good looks, I think the better it fits for you as far as if you maintain the lead. And you saw it against Texas Tech with Florida where literally in the last 3 minutes and some change, you're looking at Texas Tech like, man, as long as y'all just – you can almost coast this thing on out, and then Florida hit the spark. And I think for Auburn, if you get a lead like that, you've got to be able to maintain it. So I think the biggest thing for Auburn, one is making their shots and getting Janai Broome started early. But if you do get on that lead, don't take your foot off the gas. Like, you have to continue. You have to put this team away. Don't give them an opportunity to kind of weasel their way back into it because you saw it against UConn. You saw it against Texas Tech where even when the chips fell, you know, they're down double digits with less than 2 minutes left. You're like, oh yeah, they're done. They're over with. Then they started to know to put it all together and get a couple runs, and all of a sudden now you're looking at a 4-point, 3-point ball game, and that's when Walter Clayton Jr. goes prime Steph Curry and it's like, hey, everybody get out the way. You leave me open at this 3-point line, I'm putting it up. And I think the confidence that he has in his shot, you have to honor that. And I think for Auburn, you just gotta have those other pieces continue to step up. And I think, you know, you look at the Dylan Cardwells, don't get into early foul trouble because him and Janai Broome, they're bigger guys that defensively, when they get into these pick and roll situations, they're athletic enough to match up with the guards. It's like, okay, well, you're not going to get past me because I already have the length. I got the size on you. But if you do, to decide to, settle for a shot, it's going to be a tough look because you got a 6'11" and, pretty much a 7-footer in front of you. So I think the more looks you can kind of disrupt a little bit of what Walter Clayton Jr. does as a shooter helps you out in the long run. But also, I think on-ball defense with Denver Jones and everything that he does, I feel I feel a little more confident after what I saw from Auburn against Michigan State, where the first couple games in the tournament's like, man, they got to put it all together. And when they did, you get results like you got against Michigan and Michigan State.
Yeah, and I mean that's what that's kind of what it is about for all these teams, because every team that any year, if you make it this far, you're doing a lot of things right as a team, right? But especially in a year like this where you have all the number one seeds, only the second time ever in the Final Four. I mean, you're splitting hairs when we talk about these teams in terms of comparing them to one another, because they're all elite basketball teams. They're the four best teams in the country, and I don't think it's outside of just the I guess mental gymnastics you do of, oh well, not all the number one seeds are going to advance, but they're the four best teams in the country, so it shouldn't be that big of a shock that all of these teams have made it here to this point. But for Auburn, I mean, I think, what you were talking about with Janai Broome and how you handle that is going to be interesting to see, because I think, what you're saying, I agree with, in the sense of you want to get him started early and you want him to kind of impose his will and make it known that, all right, yeah, I'm going to do some work down here in the paint today. But with his situation, with the elbow, shoulder, whatever all is going on with him exactly, you just wonder, does that kind of give you some hesitation if you're Bruce Pearl of running the offense to him to such a high degree early on in the game? Because I think the worst thing we can all agree that would happen is Janai Broome, re-aggravates that injury early on in the basketball game, and then you kind of find yourself with, 12 minutes left in the first half, searching for answers of how you're going to piece together a win without Janai Broome on the floor. So hopefully that doesn't happen. Hopefully he's able to recover enough to where there aren't, those kinds of limitations, I guess, that the coaching staff feels like they might have to put in place to protect him. But we just, we really don't know. All we know is that he hasn't practiced the last couple of days. I wouldn't expect him to practice at all leading up to the game, because you don't want to take any risks there. But I mean, it didn't look good on Saturday. And so you wonder how much he can heal within a week, and you hope it's a lot, but it'll just be interesting to see if that injury, how that affects what the coaching staff for Auburn wants to do in this matchup. And I mean, you talking about Cardwell as well. And, size is so important with this matchup, because we've talked about it a lot about Florida this year. It's every time a guy goes to the bench, the guy that subs in is, 6'9" guy goes off the floor. Greatest 6'11" dude's coming in to replace
Right.
him. Like, you need your big guys to stay healthy, and you need them to not foul out of this basketball game, because that's going to put you at a huge disadvantage if you're not able to match them and match Florida's size. And you're probably not going to be able to do that anyways, just truly from a depth standpoint of what Florida can bring to the table. But having Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell out there, I would take those two big men against any other group that you could find in the country there. So it's going to be a lot for Auburn. We know how good Florida is. We know what Walter Clayton Jr. can do. I'll just say this: if you're in a situation where it's a one possession game late in the ball game, better not let him put a shot up.
Exactly.
We've seen multiple times already in this NCAA tournament where Florida, things are not looking great for them, and Walter Clayton Jr. hits a big three at the right moment, and off they go. And that's kind of the catalyst. And now we've seen Florida be able to get here to the Final Four as well. So going to be a great matchup. Again, Landrum Roberts is down there in San Antonio in person. So later today on Three Man Front, we're going to hear from him. He will join us live, hopefully be able to grab some people from Florida and Auburn as well, so that we can hear from them directly how they're getting prepared for this matchup on Saturday. But we'll be good to hear what's going on there in San Antonio and get a pulse. And we'd love to hear from you as well. 205-834-9450. I know I said earlier in the show, we've had some of you already sending us pictures and text of you being out there in San Antonio or starting your travels to go watch Auburn in the Final Four. And, what's the lay of the land looking like out there? Are there a lot of Auburn fans out there already? Are there, these kind of the early birds that are just go ahead and getting out there, want a couple days to explore San Antonio? Maybe a lot of you driving out there, but if you're planning to go to the game or you're already there in San Antonio, would love to hear from you, get your thoughts on the experience down there in San Antonio. But I did mention before the last break that we did have some transfer portal news. And on the other side, I do want to look at the top players you have available in the portal right now, because I think a lot of these are guys that you may recognize from, I've seen, Auburn connected to this guy. I've seen Alabama connected to this guy. Maybe, other teams in the SEC. So I want to do want to go and take a look at some of those guys that are still available because we know both Alabama and Auburn are going to have a lot to work to do and putting these rosters together for next year because, having a lot of experience is great this year, but it means you're going to have a lot of guys that are going to have to move on and go test their luck in the NBA or move on to the adult world and whatever career path that they may choose. But a lot of big names there. But one last night that I'm sure a lot of you saw was Keyshawn Hall. He is a forward from UCF. So, just kind of funny that, Gus leaves there and now you got, it's just kind of fun because we've seen a number of Auburn football players head to UCF to go play for Gus, and now they're getting a little something back in the transfer portal on the basketball side of things.
It's a Malzahn effect.
That's absolutely right. I guess we're gonna have to move to Florida State now. I guess they're gonna have to start, but Florida or Alabama's kind of gotten that one taken because about half their roster from 2 years ago is still hanging out down there in Tallahassee, I think. But Auburn does pick up a commitment from Keyshawn Hall. He's a forward from UCF. He averaged about 18 points a game last year for the Golden Knights there in the Big 12. So, again, a guy that played some big-time basketball this year in the Big 12, played a lot of really good competition and put up some big numbers there for UCF. And so that's a guy that I think you would expect, just looking at what he was able to do in the Big 12 last year, that's a guy that is going to come in and probably have a pretty significant role for the Auburn Tigers next year. So that's a big pickup for them. And so Auburn now has one player out of the transfer portal. Alabama the other day got a 7-footer, Noah Williamson, out of the portal as well. So we're off and running here. And you can just kind of see, I mean, at least for Alabama, right? You're already in off-season mode, getting things ready for next year. But Auburn keeping things rolling there, even though they're getting ready for the Final Four, they're still recruiting. They're still
always.
They're still fielding these phone calls.
Absolutely, as they should.
Absolutely right. It's just, again, just one of those reminders that being a college coach doesn't seem particularly fun in today's day and age. If I'm being honest with you, it would just drive me crazy to be like, man, we're trying to get ready for Florida, we're trying to go win a national championship, but all right, well, this is when the portal's open, so we got to do our due diligence and load up for next year as well.
Right.
It's like, all right. Well,
like, man, we're playing Florida, big dog. Let's can I break down some tape real quick? Hey, coach, you got to host we got to recruit. We got a recruit coming. We got to transfer. If you know the name, does Keyshawn, does it remind you of something? And like I can see Coach Pearl. Yeah, okay. Like let me see him. Let me see what he looks like. You go take a look at his tape, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, what's the offer? We'll get him. And that's the thing too. Like, it's a 24/7 job. It's like you said, imagine you are getting ready to potentially play for a national championship. Like, you're in the Final Four, and yet you still gotta make the phone call, still gotta send the text messages and all these things. And it's like, man, it does not stop.
No, it absolutely does not stop. And yep, those would be what I would imagine the first of a few pickups you're going to see Auburn make in the transfer portal this offseason. But when we return here on Morning Jocks, do want to go down that list of the top 10 transfer portal players right now in college basketball. Just, do we think any of those guys potentially have any buzz around Alabama or Auburn, maybe some other SEC schools that might be involved? Also, a couple of guys that we're very familiar with who have made the list that are now in the transfer portal as well. And did the Atlanta Braves finally get their first win of the season? We will find out. I don't know. Maybe. Did they? Maybe. We'll talk about it next here on Morning Jocks. Oh, Braves fans, did you finally get your first win of the season? It's been an ugly, ugly start to the 2025 season. Unfortunately for all of you Braves fans out there, it's been tough though. You played the Padres, now you're playing the Dodgers. You've had a tough start, a very competitive start here. But I think with the expectations coming in and the talent that you have on the roster, and I know you've got probably your two best players in Strider and Acuna, who you're still waiting to get back. But everybody else has found a way to win a game.
Yes.
Let's just say that.
That is fact.
And so going into the game last night, you're 0-6. You're going up against the Dodgers. This is your last game of your series with the Dodgers. Then you're going to get to go play the Marlins. So you're finally like, okay, get a little momentum, win this last game against the Dodgers, roll into a series with the Marlins, start getting things rolling here.
Sounds good.
It's all right. It's still early in the season. We can pick ourselves up off the floor. It's going to be all right.
Absolutely. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
That's right. So you tune into the game last night and you're sitting here and you're like, man, this offense for the Braves has just been really abysmal so far. And then bam. After the second inning, top of the second inning, you're up 5-0.
Let's go.
You're like, man, we're sitting pretty here. Brats are alive. Matt Olson, Ozzy Albies, guys are hitting.
Let's go.
Unfortunately, from that point on, it was kind of all Dodgers. So the Braves go up 5-0 in the top of the second. The Dodgers answer with a 2-run home run in the bottom of the second. So now it's 5-2. Okay, you're still sitting there. It's all right. It's all right. Then the fourth inning, Dodgers tack on another run. It's 5-3. Okay. Then in the bottom of the eighth, Max Muncy gets up to the plate. He's been having a rough start to the season. So what does he do? Rockets a double to center field, scores 2 runs. It's 5-5.
Oh, boy.
So you're sitting there as a Braves fan, and I imagine just probably not doing particularly well.
Disgusted, if you would ask me.
That would be a good word for it. But yeah, so you've now watched your 5-0 lead be erased, and so going into the ninth, it's 5-5. But hey, tie ball game, still got a chance. Tack on a run, get 3 outs. You're going home with a win. Well, unfortunately, the Braves did not score in the top of the ninth, so you go to the bottom of the ninth, and how fitting that none other than one Shohei Ohtani steps up to the plate. And Shohei Ohtani does Shohei Ohtani things, which is hit a walk-off home run against the Atlanta Braves. And this is how it sounded last night. So there you have it. Shohei Ohtani with a walk-off home run over the Atlanta Braves last night on Shohei Ohtani bobblehead night.
Oh, boy.
There at Dodger Stadium. I imagine a lot of those are going to end up on eBay now because, I got an Ohtani bobblehead from his walk-off home run. But yeah, that one stings. If you're an Atlanta Braves fan, I do feel bad for you. I feel bad for Landrum Roberts. I'm sure he was so excited to get out there.
Do you really?
To San Antonio. And no, I don't. But again, it just felt like the right thing to say, just like the Texas A&M thing.
Yeah. But no, this is a tough start. But the thing is, here's where I take a step back and it's like, okay, well, if you are one of the better baseball teams, you have to overcome these things. And I think like you're not in the conversation with the bottom of the barrel teams. So yeah, I get it that you open up with the San Diego Padres and the Los Angeles Dodgers, but those are also teams you could potentially be facing come playoff time. So this start that you're having, it's very difficult to watch. But also, again, you're not at 100%. Profar gets suspended. And the worst that could possibly happen is happening to start things off. And that's the thing about baseball. It's a long, long season. But to go over to start the season off, it's I can see where the Braves fans are frustrated. I wouldn't even say frustrated. They're angry. Especially having a 5-0 lead in the top of the second where it's like, hey, as long as we can just, handle our business, we should be good. And then the best baseball player on the planet comes up to the plate when the game is on the line and proceeds to do that. So it's tough. It's tough. But brighter days are ahead, I think.
Yeah, hopefully so. It's just now you're at the point where, the last time you had a start this bad was 2016, which was a year that you had to fire your manager, Freddie Gonzalez. or I guess he actually, I'm trying to remember if he got fired at the end of that year or very early in the next year. But then you had Brian Snitker come in and take over. But that year you went 68-93 and you finished in last place in the National League East. But you did start 0-9 that year. So you still have some time to get out in front of that. And again, this is a team that is talented enough to turn things around, right? And in the world of baseball, if you have watched baseball for a long time, you understand like everybody's going to go through a skid at some point in a season. Now, you typically don't want that to be at the beginning of the year when you have to dig yourself out of a hole, but it doesn't leave you a lot of room for error at other points in the season with a start like this. But the Braves have enough talent, and once they get back to 100%, and you get Strider and you get Acuna back and you get some of these other guys back, and I know you're going to miss Profar for a long time now, but he'll be back, not for the postseason, but you'll get him late in the regular season. There is room to make up ground. However, you also play in one of the most difficult and competitive divisions in all of Major League Baseball, the Phillies, the Mets. We know what they're capable of doing, and we all thought the Braves were right up there with them. A lot of people I know picked the Braves to win the National League East this year. But you're in a little bit of a hole now. So hopefully brighter days are ahead. As I said, you are playing the Marlins next, so that maybe gives you a little hope that you can find some breathing room here, and it's a division opponent. Let's be honest, it's the Marlins, right? You should be able to go in there.
Exactly.
You should be able to win 2 or 3.
You should. If not, to bring out the broom. But confidently, I get it.
Yes.
I get it. Yeah.
Yes.
It's not put the cart before the horse.
Yes, you would like to bring out the brooms, but yeah, you got to just get that first win right now. So yeah, rough start to the season for the Braves. They are 0-7 after their loss last night to the Dodgers on the Shohei Ohtani walk-off home run. But as Damian said, brighter days are ahead, we think. So keep your heads up there, Braves fans. It's all right.
It's okay. It's fine.
Hopefully you're also an Auburn fan, so you have something to look forward to this weekend.
It would be like the most disappointing trifecta if you are right now. If you are a, let's just say you're an Auburn fan, you're a Tennessee Titans fan, and you're an Atlanta Braves fan. It's been a rough stretch. But again, it's early on in the baseball season.
Are you looking in the mirror?
No, I'm not a Braves fan. Not a Braves. I've never really been. Actually, this is the crazy thing. So the first baseball game I went to was the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds in Atlanta. And Brandon Phillips made just like an amazing play in the infield, turn 2 by himself. And I was just like, I like that guy.
I'm going to root for them.
Yeah. I was like, I like him. He looks pretty good. Looks pretty flashy. He's got a mean glove. And he went up to the plate, hit the ball well. I was like, I like that guy. Been a Reds fan ever since. I think it was like 2005, 2006.
But the other 2 apply to you?
One of those does.
Oh, okay.
The Titans.
I just can't keep up.
It's off. It's fine, man. It's fine. Listen, that's why it's the spring. I have all spring and summer long to decide to pick my fandom for the year. Actually, you know what? I've been thinking about this. I'm going to try my best by kickoff of the college football season to dwindle it down to one SEC team I will root for.
Yeah, it's Tennessee.
No, it's not.
Oh, you're going to change?
I'm going to be open. But the thing is, like, I want the fans to convince me to be a fan of their team because once I lock in, I'm locked in. But here's the thing.
So you're not going to root for Tennessee anymore? I'm
not going to say I'm not going to root for them, but in the event that, hey, if there's a Florida fan that convinces me that, you know what, you need to rock with the Florida Gators this fall. If I choose to, I would, in the Florida Tennessee matchup, I would have to go as a Florida fan. I would be a Florida fan for that day. Actually, all season long.
I was about to say, so okay.
So you have the spring and summer.
So people need to put in their applications for Damian Mitchell to become blank fan.
Yeah,
for 2025.
You know what? I'm gonna come up with like a fan proposal sheet, and I'm gonna get like people to sign it or get people to like basically convince me, and I will have a signing day of who I will be rooting for in the fall. We'll do that before the first game of the college football season.
Okay.
And I have to commit to it. I got to stick to it. So
we're going to just go ahead and remove Alabama from that list because if you have to be convinced to root for Alabama, then we're not interested.
And I will open up for all 16 SEC teams. And so Texas A&M, John Mack, if you're there, if you find a convincing argument for me to root for Texas A&M to start the football season, I will do it. I'll try to at least.
All right, well, we can get it started right now. 205-834-9450. Who do you want Damian to root for in the upcoming college football season? What's the best pitch you can make for your favorite team? Or, I don't know, maybe you want him to root for somebody that you don't like because you think it'd be funny. But we want to hear from you on the Courtesy GMC text line. Text us in. Let us know who you want Damian to root for in 2025. I didn't know that was up for sale, but apparently it is today. So we will read your text, get your thoughts on that, as well as take a look at some college basketball transfer portal news when we come back here on Morning JOX. $6:50 here on your Thursday morning. A few more minutes here with Conrad and Damian before we hand you off to McElroy and Kublik in the morning. They'll be with you from 7 to 10. Then I will be back from 10 until 2 with Three Man in Front alongside Pat Smith, Landrum Roberts, and our new employee of the month, Molly Robinson.
Hey, there we go. Congratulations.
Back-to-back employee of the months here for JOX 94.5. So just I'll take half the credit for that.
There we go.
No, but congratulations to Molly. We're looking forward to that. And we will have Landrum Roberts on with us live from San Antonio from the Final Four. So who will he have on the show? We don't know. But it will be interesting to see who he can grab and get to interview so we can get the latest on what's going on down there at the Final Four. But before we went to break, Damian decided to auction off his college football fandom.
Auction off.
So we're getting out ahead of this. We have what, 4.5-ish months
Exactly
to determine this. But Damian said that he is going to accept applications from all of our wonderful listeners for who he should root for in the SEC in 2025, and it's not going to be Tennessee.
No, I mean if a Tennessee fan does present a strong enough argument, then yes. But I will have I'm going to build a graphic like a recruiting graphic and have all 16 teams behind me. And I'll dwindle it down month to month. Of one team may not have presented enough arguments, and by signing day I'll have 3 teams at least. And I'll make my decision before kickoff. Okay,
well, let's see what we all right, well, let's see what the people are saying on the text line. Let's see. Steven texted in. He says, Damian, I'm just going to say this. You would look good in purple and gold. Go Tigers.
Hey, appreciate it.
Okay.
I do have some LSU gear.
So we're going flattery there. Let's see. This person texted in. Definitely need to get Damian to root for Mississippi State or Kentucky, or if you want a non-SEC team, he offers up Purdue.
Don't. Kentucky, if I can get past my Mark Stoops, I guess you say disdain. But Mississippi State, I'm halfway there.
All right, so Mississippi State, the early leader in the clubhouse, it sounds like. Let's see. Somebody, Will texted and he says, I think it would make great radio if Damian had to root for Georgia, because then him and Conrad can go at it early in the season.
Hey, I mean, go Dogs.
Let's see. Drake wants you to be a Florida fan.
Okay.
Let's see. Somebody else texting in. I just saw the last text that this person sent. But they say hook 'em. Come on, Damian. So someone wants you to.
Oh, they want me new blood.
Go on over there to Longhorn country. Yep.
Me and Matt McLaren.
Brandon texted in. He says the only thing Damian is committed to is his commitment issues.
I'm a free agent, man.
Let's see. Mad Dog says you would look like a genius if you started rooting for Auburn right before their big turnaround.
Hey, I mean, Jackson Arnold is starting to grow on me, man. The spring is, I don't know if it's just because it's warm outside, but I do have a little soft spot for Jackson Arnold, man. He's out there cooking. He's cooking.
Let's see. Someone else chiming in. Damian, just be like your buddy Don and pull for Auburn. That's a compelling argument.
Is it?
Yeah, something to talk about. Let's see. Somebody says there should only be one choice. You live in Alabama, but what is that one choice?
What's the one choice?
Yeah, I think there's 2 choices. Which one is the right one, though? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's the question.
Someone says Damian can root for D's.
As in D. Wow.
Yep, you finished it.
Dang, man.
This is actually a good idea if we could coordinate this and get this together. But Will texted in, he says, I have an idea for y'all. Why don't y'all do speed dating, but with fans of each team until Damian finds his right match? That'd be fun if we could. We could scrape together, fans from all 16 teams, make it fair.
That's not bad at all.
Has to be fair. We'll try to put something like that together. That'd be fun. Let's see. Yeah, someone else. See, this is a good argument. Someone says you should root for LSU because you played wide receiver, and that's what LSU is known for.
Okay.
Wide receiver, you.
All right, LSU. They're starting to gain some ground on me.
Okay. The one choice we were trying to figure out, it is Alabama. Okay. I was just making sure. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth. Man, another one. Tyler, how about LSU?
Seems like LSU. Hey, I like gumbo. I like purple and gold.
Let's see. Thomas wants you to stay uncommitted because he likes Damian's shirt of the day. Appreciate y'all tuning in. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. Those guys are next.